allow yourself to start to land. The inevitability of, like, my mom fell last night. She's 87. And so she's in the hospital and all that stuff's going on this morning. The arc of life, and you'd think with a son that gets around in a wheelchair since she was 13, she's resisted using a cane or a walker because, so she tells me my identity isn't changed by having to always be in a wheelchair and ask for help. But turns out that in the life arc, she can't ask for help either. And by the way, there's certain places where I'm not great at receiving help either. So it's like, damn, the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree, but now a precipitating event is going to change her arc, right? And she seems like she's going to be okay, but who knows? Life, So exhaling, letting it go. I was thinking about how to say it. I was thinking about the grace thing, how to say it to my mom. Change is coming, Mom, and you can either do it gracefully or not gracefully, like you've always taught. It's up to you. But that's kind of like one of my attitudes about living with a disability. I mean, it's like you can do it gracefully and with kindness, or you can be angry and stuff. And quite frankly, it takes less energy on the whole to be graceful, to be kind. The price of being angry and bitter or resisting too much change, it's deep, right? So the exhale, right? The landing. Change is hard, and not. So feel your feet on the floor. Your sitting bones. We know that prana rewards structure, right? So if I can get slightly more organized in my perception, then I'm going to feel the life force come through me. It's going to be more tangible. Balance your head over your neck. But structure can't be gripped too hard. So as you're on the front edge of your sits bones, that allows you to travel down from the inner groin to the inner knee, down to the inner heel, right? And then you hit down and you lift up with your lower abdomen, and then you bring it up your chest and broaden across the front of your chest and the back of your chest. And then I know that I just unbalanced my head over my neck and my neck over my torso. So I have to do that again. Soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Now, I think that it's harder to keep organized with the prana with your eyes closed. So I usually go through stuff, and then once I get the feeling and sensations of filling my vessel clear, then I close my eyes and I add another level of inward. You get to decide the order that you think it's best for, right? So again, let there be a silk curtain dropping down from the base of your neck to your tailbone as you lift the chest up. Soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth. And if it's easy and you can stay on balance, bring your hands into prayer. So find your midline. Equalize the pressure so you live around the midline. So the pressure between your hands, the empty space between your sitting bones, the lift up the core channel, the dropping from the base of the neck down to the sacrum, the feeling of connection through your sitting bones and feet, the observation of in-breath and out-breath. Making sure as your mind is aware of all these places that you're keeping the inside of your mouth soft. Stay open, stay happy. Be grateful. It's worth it. Being grateful is worth it. Let go of your day and prepare your mind to do yoga. Good. And then release. Take your sternum up towards your chin down over your sternum. The sensation of each nostril, the filling of each lung, the earth grounding of each sitting bone, of each foot, each heel, all together at once. It's quite a mixture. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So from that centering place, put your hands on your knees and ground your knees. So let's add grounding to the midline, right? So, right, like I'm just going to do this because I want, I want to know, especially as I navigate these next couple of days, for example, and hopefully it's not really bad news with my mom, but it's like, but it's going to be hard on her. I need to make sure I know where I am in space as I deal with what's coming down, right? So I don't react for the wrong reasons. So grounding is your ally. It's not just a yoga thing, right? It's your ally. It actually makes your mind more balanced, right? Take a few breaths, lift your chest. Get down to your feet. Having a balanced mind is an interesting thing, and then release. So very gently, left arm goes up, goes across, super gentle. This is just to bring some life and some diversity into the feeling of your body. This is not trying to be a full twist. I want to make sure I know where my feet are, my sitting bones are, as my spine turns just a little, and then back, and then inhale up. So I hope you've kind of figured out, if you practice on your own, what your beginning rituals are to help your body wake up a little bit. There are ones that I keep showing you, the ones that I do, right? But I know in the beginning to be really gentle. I got nothing to prove right out of the gate. And then release. And isn't it funny, when you live with a harder life than most people around you, I can't believe how many times in the last 4 years I've said, well, I don't know if I would have had the strength to go through that. And it's like, I don't know, it just happens, right? I'd like to tell you that I knew exactly, all of us. It's like, well, it's not as magical as you think. You just do it, right? But what I figured out is that I want to feel my body as I'm surviving my situation. So lift up. So this idea of space, I hope over the last few months, you figured out, and then set yourself back down. Whew, there's gravity. There's the normal world, right? Where I fall into that hole, right? That's I've been emphasizing how important space is in your low back if you sit a lot. So lift back up. Now I'm going to try to keep my spine elongated as I set myself down. Right away, I'm going to ground my knees to try to support the elongated sensation in my spine. And then I'm going to go through it again. There's the world where I think I have to deal with stuff, right? I'm going to keep finding other spaces that wait for me. So I'm going to stay lifted, drop my shoulders down, set myself back down more equally, support it by grounding my knees, and feel more vibrant. And then I'm going to fall back into the space that I normally do, but hopefully even that starts to change one more time. So when I keep it long, even when I fall back into the old space, it's not as deep and such a rut, right? So I'm doing both. And so again, the elongation, so I'm going to come forward on onto my table bar, onto my knees, because I want to get that length. Because your yoga teacher's telling you that length in your spine is actually really important. It's like breathing better oxygen, right? It's like without spaciousness and freedom in your body, your breath will always be traveling through walls, right? So if you can't take deep breaths, or full breaths, which depending, sometimes I can't very well. I want to make sure whatever breath I have is touching the sensation of freedom in my body, right? As opposed to what I feel or what hurts. So by elongating my spine, it feels like a stretch and that feels good. And I hope over the months you've been starting to have, there's the physical sensation of elongation, the muscles getting lengthened. And then if you ground your sitting bones, there's another dimension to the experience. And then if you ground your forearms or your hands on your knees or on the table, that dimension keeps getting structure. And now my breath travels. My breath travels when I'm more grounded. It's more nourishing. As long as the structure I create to help it travel doesn't constrain my breath. So I'm just like making sure I start to claim more of the dimension in my experience by introducing relief. Right? And then come on back up. Now I'm going to sit and hit down and rise up. And hopefully it feels different than the beginning of class already. Right? And then I'm going to take that spot, which I know when my mind is in charge of everything, and this happens to a lot of people. If my mind's in charge of everything, this space tends to collapse in the center of the chest. Right? And so I'm going to actually take again, being a little bit forward on my sitting bones, ground my knees in support. And now instead of feeling the lift and the drop down the back body, I want to I'm putting my own fingers like this between my shoulder blades. And I'm going to go like that in every direction. Have you figured out how to do that yet? How do you open the space between your shoulder blades? So Pat, I see you shaking your head. Don't think about it so much physically. You tend to think about how to do it with muscles. Think about just spreading your shoulder blades a little bit, right? Broadening across the back ribs, hitting down and hitting up. So it turns out that you can't directly move the space between your shoulder blades. You have to move and be aware of everything around it so it can open, right? And once you start to practice that, Pat, you'll be able to just do it more on command, because that's the wonderfulness of habit. You start, your mind doesn't know how to do something, but your body kind of does. And you get better at it. So, and then release it. Just notice the contrast of when you drop your sternum, right? It's so interesting that we tend to collapse when we're under stress, right? Like, doesn't quite seem right. Seems like I might be more fragile when my chest is dropped, but I feel more vulnerable when I'm open. Fragile, vulnerable. Are you sure vulnerability is actually fragile? Right? So fragile is vulnerability that's not grounded. Grounding, vulnerability is consciousness. Right? So now I'm gonna like feel that space and try to open it more directly. And as I open the space between my shoulder blades in the center of my chest, I want you to roll your inner upper thigh in and down and press down through your heels. And then go to the outer tips of your shoulders. Balance your head over your neck. Structure, space. Good, and then release. There's this really important line in this, that BKS Iyengar translates in the Yoga Sutras this way. When effortful effort becomes effortless, you've encountered the fourth method of pranayama, the fourth method of breathing, right? So, like, for example, think about how basic that line is. So I'm paralyzed from the chest down. So here'd be a perfect example. If I try to cough when I'm leaning back behind the balance point, right? Or sneeze, I'm gonna have a much less effective cough or sneeze. If I can come forward, right? So there's a less effort in the exhale because I'm forward in gravity, right? Then it gets deeper as opposed to, so notice that in your own case, right? So go behind the balance point and try coughing, right? Come forward, right? It's different because you're beginning to create a direction without effort. So instead of my coughing having to generate all the direction on its own, I create a form of effortlessness that my exhale can follow. I'm just using coughing to make it more dramatic. This is why you exhale when you come through gravity, because you're taking advantage of the changing gravity to help guide your exhalation. Okay, so ground, inhale, open the space in the center of the chest, feel your sitting bones, turn them in slightly, hit down through your feet, and then forward, right? And now do it this time without a cough, right? And then back up. And then if you can do it through your nose, do it. If not, do it the same thing again. I want to create effortlessness in the middle of effort. Otherwise, my effort will make me ungrateful, right? All right, inhale, take your arm up. So again, why would that be? Right, the inhalation. So the arm, if you do, and take it down. So I'm gonna do the other arm. So instead of just the arm going up when I'm not coordinating my breath and the expansion of my breath creates an effortless form, effortless effort, right? So I'm gonna inhale and go up and then back down. And then inhale and go up. And the breath itself creates some of the effortlessness. And then again, so I'm growing, right? Now I'm gonna make it even more for my brain. So as I inhale and take, I'm gonna call this my left arm, I'm gonna push down through my right sitting bone and right foot. So I start making my whole body do this. So I start to use grounding as a way to create effortlessness because I'm trying to improve my breathing, right? I'm creating an effortless form of effort or taking some of the work out of it. Now I'm gonna lift my chest when I do it and rock a little bit on my sitting bones. oh my God, can you start to see why vinyasa yoga is like so freaking cool? It starts to make the rhythm start happening as I'm going back and forth. It's like, wait, I get to actually have rhythm here. So now take your arm out. So I'm going to go up. Now rock forward and back, right? And then down and then up. And so you're changing gravity. Remember, that's a form of effortless effort when you actually use gravity to your advantage, right? Not just hold against gravity and then back down. So that's a bit, when you can start making gravity a complement to your breathing, right? That's a huge breakthrough. So like, for example, my mom, because she's weakening at 87, she's not being able to use gravity to help her breathe and ground in the same way. She's always pushing against stuff, right? And God, at 87, I hope I can do as well as she's doing, right? But she's lost track of something as simple as this. So go back and forward, right? So as I come forward, I go, oh my God, there's weight in my legs. That's not just a burden, that's a grounding. And then I'm going to go back and go, oh yeah. So I'm just trying to get some space and some sensation of freedom in my body so my body can calm my mind down, right? Back and forth, right? It's like watching the process. So now I purposely didn't give you breathing instructions. So now figure out yourself where you inhale and where you exhale. You really want to teach yourself about when, where to breathe when, do it wrong, and you'll soon. Problem with that is you get a headache when you do that, right? You are naturally will breathe more correctly until your mind gets involved and tries to figure it out. And then you get screwed up again, right? All right. Let's take up more space for a second. Take the legs wide, open it up. Oh dear. So you gotta, like, at first I wanna, like, when I'm being too willful of a yogi, I actually don't let a change settle. So I'm just gonna sit here for a second as I spread my knees, show you, I'll move the camera a little bit. But I wanna like feel it before I start making a yoga pose, right? So I can allow the transition of the change to be part of the change. So when you're practicing at home, what's great about practicing at home is you get to control the pace. So I'm just going to sit here for a second and watch the difference. There's me, like, coming up, extending my spine to create more awareness and then let it drop. And I'm like, wow, even in this position, there's a whole bunch of freedom. Then I'm going to push down on my knees, right? Taking advantage of that change of gravity, right? And watching what that does, right? So we're just activating my spine in relationship to my legs, right? Now, I've kind of settled this in a little bit. I'm going to make it go a little further. And I got one hip that doesn't want to go out as much as the other. So I'm going to push a little bit more on that. I want that groin to open. Get down with my sitting bones. Give meaning to the open groin. Take a breath. Now this will be, I'm going to do it. It's not going to be as good a yoga because my spine's going to have to like lose its integrity. I take both arms wide. And I'm going to contrast that to when I use grounding on my legs. I'm going to try to keep that as I take my arms wide. Good. And then I'm going to bring the legs back. Ground the femur bones again. Find where the midline is, right? Consciousness manifests from the center outward. Mind goes from the outward in. Mind and consciousness are different. A failure in the Western paradigm. They conflate the two. Take your legs wide. Right, so now I'm going to lean over one direction and get why, like, there are all these poses like side flank pose and Parsvakonasana and all these poses that get you off gravity, but very active in your spine, right? So I'm over to the left, I'm grounding, I'm making sure my awareness stays in my back leg. I'm elongating my spine and I'm turning, right? And I'm making sure this arm to my leg is being part of the yoga, right? And I open my chest, open that place in the center between my shoulder blades, and use that to feel my legs more. Good, and then release. So just for a second, in Parsvakonasana, side flank pose, just want to show you quick. So imagine I was standing, this back leg was straight, this leg was in a right angle, right? And then what happens in Parsvakonasana is this goes into the straight vertical line. So we're going to do it. We're going to do the other side, and then we're going to do it with the arms too. So this is a version of a very difficult standing pose, Parsvakonasana. So I'm going to lean over, right? So I'm going to make sure, right, I'm getting this back leg grounded. That would be out in a straight line, right, if I were standing. But I just want the dynamic energy between my spine and my femur bone to actually be online. So that's why I'm pushing on my femur bone, right? So now I'm turning my spine upward towards the sun. But as I do that, I want to keep my sitting bones and my feet being connected to the earth, right? So I'm turning and revolving, right? But I'm making it stay grounded and sturdy. And then come on back to center. Bring your legs back together. Feeling, remembering, right? I don't know about you, how does your mind change when you open to the space of the cord channel that is between your sitting bones and goes right through your corridor? Hopefully, when you start becoming aware of that space, and it's like, so like becoming aware of the space that through which the bond is traveled, but that's for another day. Like, it's not like an action. You have to find, it's more like awareness of the cord channel requires, so imagine it's a tube, right? Awareness of the cord channel, you can only be aware of the pipe or the tube. And then you have to allow the space between that's in the pipe. You don't get to feel and control the space that's in your cord channel, but you can notice the water going through the pipe, right? But you don't get to control it. So like, it's why the connection to your sitting bones and grounding your legs, this is preparation for me to bet my mind to better open to what's happening in every moment of the day. This energy is constantly coming up, getting oxygenated, getting distributed as electrical impulses to my nervous system, but it's constant, right? And all I can do for my mind, because is like set the conditions so my mind can sense it, but it doesn't get to grab it. I don't get to squeeze it, right? If I squeeze it, I choke it off. Keep the center of your chest open by allowing. Ground your sitting bones, ground your feet. This core energy is in Parsvakonasana. It's just Parsvakonasana turns the center of gravity a different way. Makes you move your body a different way. So take your arms, your legs wide again. Now, before we do the full pose again, take one arm wide. Right? Back. Take the other arm wide. So as you take one arm off to the side, I hope that you're grounding the midline, the area around the tube, so you can feel coming through the channel, right? So here, I'm grounding to make it two over it. I'm grounding my opposite sitting bone, hitting down, lifting up, back, over. Now I know when I do, it may not be for you. When I do both arms, I'm going to fall out of gravity. No longer is gravity going to be effortless. Now I have to work harder muscularly. This pose does not feel as flowing for me. So I'm going to go back to the first one. Are you being, although your arms are moving, are you paying attention to your legs and your sitting bones? I hope so. So keep doing that a couple times. So it's one arm back, both arms. And on the next time you do that, when you go both arms, connect to both ankles, right? So you're going out, you're creating space, grounded space, expand in every direction, out through your knees, out through your feet, and then back. Preparation to what it is to stay grounded. Both arms expand, both legs expand, and then back. Bring your legs together. Ground the midline again. Because one of the things that Parasvanottanasana, side plank, is going to do is challenge you to keep the midline in the pose. So I'm going to ground here because I know what's coming. My awareness of this grounded core channel is going to come under fire because gravity is going to be different. Can I make gravity be part of my effortlessness as opposed to something I hold against? These are the questions that are foundational to asana. Good, now I'm going to take my legs away. So before I start leaning over and stuff, I'm going to remember the expansive feeling of being in space, right? I'm not going to do it with my arms because I lose my spine, right? So I'm going to feel it out this way. So I'm going to switch gravity, come down this way. I'm going to make sure, so I'm actually grabbing my foot pedal and I'm pushing on my thing, but I want my spine to stay alert. Here's my spine not alert. Here's my spine alert, right? Expansive. So that's like, helps me feel the opposite ankle to the opposite wrist, all that stuff right now. Now I'm going to bring my arm into midline, right? And have my arm be expression of the core channel. As I'm turning my belly up towards the ceiling, as I'm grounding through my sitting bones and feet, right? Parasvanottanasana. Good, and then release. So again, it's how you see the outline of the pose. This leg would be in a right angle. I'd be standing, and this leg would be standing and be straight. So this pose, just watch, is actually a side flank stretch to express the midline, right? And then come back to center. We're gonna go the other way. But it's a hard pose. So I'm catching my breath here because it's hard to do this and talk, actually. So I'm now going to lean over here. So now I've started the grounding process. Remember, the grounding is part of the effortlessness. So this groin is different. I have to be careful here. Here. So that's me going in every direction. Here's me keeping every direction, but moving my arm into the midline. Come on, straighten your arm. Oh my goodness, how do you straighten your arm? And then come on back. So I don't want to call out names in particular, but the three people I looked at on the screen, you weren't straightening your arm, right? And so that's not the end of the world, right? But you don't want to not do something that you have capacity to do, you just don't know it yet, right? So everyone take your arm up, make sure it's straight. Can it go straight here? Because if it can go straight here, it can go straight here. Now, what do? You have to hit down with your shoulder girdle. Stretch and open the skin on the elbow pit. Bring more awareness there to straighten your arm. Right? Good. And then release. Off to the side. Right? If it goes straight here, it goes straight here. You just have to figure out how to do it. Right? And then release. And if it doesn't go straight here, then there's a reason why you're having trouble going over your head. All right, so I'm going to take your legs wide again. So I find that I don't, with my legs, because I don't walk and I get around in a chair, I don't express energy from my spine out into the room as much, right? So already for me, and for some of you that aren't standing and taking your legs wide when you're waiting for coffee in the morning, have the same experience. So take a second to ground your sitting bones. So remember, we're trying to use gravity, right, as an effortless form of effortlessness, right? So if I lean behind the balance point, careful, don't fall out of your chair, right? Right? If I go behind the balance point, my ability to extend out through each knee is way less. To do it, I have to overgrip my diaphragm. If I come forward on my sitting, keep my chest lifted, and now this is instruction I give you a lot. Broaden across your sacrum, express it out through the knees. Ground your heels on the floor to give more definition to the straight line coming out of your hip socket through your knee. So that the foot going down is an expression of this expansion, right? Feel your spine. Good, and then release and go back and fall out of it. So we're going through this extra pattern of expression. So on the last time we did Prasarabdhanasana, you start working your legs more. All right, so again, I'm gonna ground and find where my legs are. Ground my sitting bones, spread across my sacrum on the back side, and look for expression out through the knees. So what's tricky about broadening your sacrum and expressing it out through your femur bone, out through your knees, is that although you broaden the sacrum, you need to extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. So the sacrum's on the outer body, right? So you're broadening across the low back. And then you come forward on your sitting bones and express through the inner edge of your knee, inner edge of your thigh. And feel what that feels like. And then follow out of gravity. See that you've lost the effortless form of effort when you're not on the front edge of your sitting bones. And then come on back to center. So, you know, at 87, my mom is falling because she's lost track of gravity being an ally as opposed to just an adversary, right? And it's, you know, at 87, that's the natural course of things. So I'm going to be in the midline again. So on this next time we do Prasarabdhanasana, I'm really going to want you to activate your legs, not just get caught in the drama of your arms. Okay, so take your legs wide again. So now I already know that once I lean this way, I got to keep more awareness in the back part of the leg. But now instead of just going down, I want you to go out to go down. So my inner groin is pointing up through my knee. I'm feeling where my foot is. So when I activate my spine, here's me not activating my spine. When I activate my spine, the energy goes out through my knee and ground it, right? And then release and show yourself the clarity of the expression. So here I go, I open and I'm extending across my sacrum, out through my inner groin to my inner knee, pressing down through my feet to keep this in the full pose. It's in a straight line, right? Now I'm going to go up and wide, but now I really want the emphasis to be more of expanding across your sacrum and out through your femur bones. And then take the arm over. Take a couple of breaths, and on each exhalation, extend out through your knees. Good, and then release. Oh Lord, I gotta let my groins be okay for a second. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to the midline. Lots of energy moving if you're paying attention, right? So I'm gonna ground again, find my breath, broaden again, knowing that even though Parsvakonasana goes more into a straight line, this energy is still here. The expansive energy is still here. So now I come and lean over. I make sure the energy is going through the back leg in particular, but now I'm going to broaden across my sacrum. And as I extend out through my knees, activate your spine. Activate your spine. Broaden across the sacrum. Retouch the expansive energy that's in the whole room. Keep your knees expressing that energy in your feet, then bring the arm into the midline, but don't lose the expansion of the arm off to the side. Ground your sitting bones in your feet. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. Just feel that for a second. So there's a lot of and then come forward and elongate your back. I remember, so I had an encounter with my yoga teacher. I can still remember I was in Joe's basement, in her basement, and that's where her yoga studio was. And I was on my hands and knees and I was working on dog pose and up dog, especially up dog, which would be forward and lifting your chest, right? You just be laying on the ground. And she said, and I was struggling to get my chest open, and I was being really willful. I was doing this really hard, trying to get this open, right? And she said to me, took me years to figure out what she said. She said, Matt, just change your relationship to gravity. So I was like fighting through gravity to get myself open, okay? Which is part of what my mom's still trying to do as she's trying to walk at 87. Because she doesn't realize the resource of the empty space, right? So when she said change your relationship to gravity, I remember thinking, well, problem with that, Joe, is that gravity is a constant. How do you change your relationship to a constant, right? It's not ever, that it's here and not here. And how do you change your relationship to what is pervasive in every moment? Well, it turns out my understanding of that now, as you're leaning forward here, is that the empty space, so things I say when I teach teachers, is that the subtle body, the empty spaces in your experience are not as subject to gravity as your outer body. Right? So as you're leaning forward here and feeling your sitting bones and your feet and elongating your back, can you open the space between your shoulder blades in the center of your chest? is that part of you as subject to gravity? The answer is no. This is part of what asana is teaching you in inversions, is that you've got parts of you are more and less confined by gravity. Now, I'm not telling you to imagine the center of your chest. That would be different. That would lack organic energy. I'm telling you to put your consciousness in the emptiness of the center of your chest, ground your sitting bones, ground your feet, find the lightness that is always there, that never leaves you. Your mind just looks away because it's occupied with what's outside of you. So you're just trying to find that place where gravity can be your ally as opposed to your adversary. And the poses are constantly throwing you off balance so you can realize the continuousness of the ally of empty space, the unchanging part of it. So you're just making sure there's enough structure, each sitting bone, each heel, the weight on each leg, the length in the back, the grounding energy so the empty space in the center of the chest can reveal. I cover it up if I drop my sternum. That's why a lifted chest is in every pose. There is strength here, but it's graceful. It's not willful. It's graceful. Good, and then back up. Your mind wants to grab and make it willful. It can do that too. So practice the symmetry again. So each foot, each sitting bone, each shoulder, balance your head over your neck. Nourish the empty spaces. And then Shavasana asks you to surrender those empty spaces to gravity. So get more comfortable in your chair or forward under the table or whatever you do. But Shavasana, it's at the end of Light on Yoga. BKS Iyengar is known to have said it's the hardest pose in Light on Yoga. Right? Because you're actually having to surrender the empty spaces, change your relationship to gravity. Accept it so the empty spaces can get nourished by boundary. Soften around the temples, the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body Gratitude invigorates empty spaces, gives them direction. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes slowly. And then close them and then open them again. And your week's gonna come, you know. All right, if you can bring your hands together, namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.